Okay, here we are, episode 5. We're going to talk about why this matters. I'm still in London, and it's still raining. And honestly, if it doesn't stop raining, I'm coming back to Los Angeles. This is hitting a little too close to home. The last 6 months in LA were raining. 1 week of nice, beautiful weather. And now I'm in London, and it is raining again. So, here we are.
Is that your way of saying welcome to Mind Shift?
We don't do intros anymore. How are you?
Well, I was doing really great.
Is that my fault? Is that my fault?
No, I'm here in sunny LA.
I'm in a great mood today. I'm actually in a great mood.
Well, good. No, I'm excited. We have so many good things coming up. We are launching the arena in just a blink of an eye. I have a book coming out called Mind Shift in 2 blinks of an eye.
And I have it right here.
There's just so much good going on. I'm so excited. And then you and Austin put together one of those clips. I think it has over 800,000 views.
Austin, that was Austin.
Amazing. Austin, great job. And so just so many amazing things. I mean, I've been on the road like crazy. And
tell us where you've been.
Yeah, as you guys know, I was in Nashville last week meeting with all these writers. And then I flew to Salt Lake City, was part of a board for a new software startup called give.care. And they focus on helping families with disabled children. Very exciting. Then I flew to Costa Rica from there. I went to a longevity center called RMI, where they basically took out 100% of my plasma out and replaced it, and also injected 10 million stem cells into my body. And supposedly this is supposed to make me a brand new version of me. So I'm very excited and experienced the full results of that. Then flew back to LA. And
weren't stem cells pretty controversial?
Well, stem cells are controversial when they use embryos, but that's why you want to make sure that they're only using the umbilical cords, and because you don't want to contribute, to the abortion industry and using human fetuses, for personal gain.
So how do you know?
That's why they certify the stems, and
there's a whole process of them kind of telling you where they come from.
Yeah, and then went from there to Ojai to a mastermind called the Wellspring. It was really fascinating to be there and to speak to that group, and then came back to LA and spoke at Mosaic Sunday, and had one of the most amazing weekends. And then from there to tomorrow, fly out to Dallas to speak at another mastermind, then go to Asheville to a friend's wedding, then fly to London to see you, then fly to Copenhagen to have dinner, and then fly to Chicago for the Global Leadership Summit, and the Mexico City for Mosaic Mexico's 5th year anniversary, and then back home on August 7th. So it's an insane month for me.
Yeah, that's yeah. I don't even think you had most of that planned 2 months ago.
No, I had some of it planned, and some of it just dropped in the middle of it. And in the middle of all that, we're launching the arena on August 2nd.
Yeah, it's the most annoying thing in the world.
There's never a good time to change the world.
No. There are better times than this. When we picked August 2nd, I don't think we had any of this on our calendar. I mean, we didn't think Austin would be obviously, away. We didn't think I would be away. We didn't realize you were going to be everywhere. It could quite possibly be the most difficult time to make an attempt at launching something new. But it will make for a lot of interesting stories, because whenever we live a lot of life, then there's a lot of application to it.
I tell you, I just feel so compelled by what we're doing with the arena. I'm incredibly excited. I think we're going to serve thousands, if not tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people across the world. People are in an entirely new era of human development, where the people who used to go to college are not going to college. The people who finish college are not finishing college. The outcomes you used to get by going to college are no longer the outcomes that you get from going to college. People are desperately searching for new paradigms of education, new ways to learn. We still need to learn. We still need to grow. We still need to develop skills and capacities that are essential for success. And the
Well, I
reality is
find it
that,
interesting that you said still, because I thought I learned more before I got into university than I did at university. I learned more traveling for 15 years with you than I did going to, a top-rated university.
well, I mean, that's my whole point, is that the reason you had universities is because we need skills to live our lives at the level we want to live them, and to step into professions and to have careers and to become skilled and to become experts in a field. And the way that you achieve that is no longer the way that it used to be achieved. And so I think we're in a gap time where everybody knows the way it's been done doesn't work, but no one's really sure how it's going to be done. And anyone who wants to be good at anything knows they need to learn certain competencies. But the competencies are as important as math and literature and the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. But what people really need to learn is leadership. They need to learn how to think mindsets. They need to learn how to communicate, and they need to learn how to be in the public arena of thought and elevate their thinking. And that's not really available. You're not going to get that at Harvard. You're not going to get that at Stanford. And the reality is that the arena is going to be one of the few places in the world where people can actually access the highest level of thinking and engagement and mentoring in the areas of leadership, communication, and character. And it's going to be an incredible place. I'm really so excited about it. I can't stop thinking about it. I've been thinking about this day and night, going, this is going to be our life's work. This is going to be extraordinary.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. We've spent the better half, I guess well over a year now developing this and creating this community and kind of ideating around this idea of what would it look like to build a place online and in person with the summit that we're doing in October, where people can come together and sharpen their skills, sharpen their minds, learn something very specific, and also things that are very broad. I think one of your biggest core values is learning how to think. That thinking matters, understanding how to think matters, and asking big questions matter. And, within the world that we come from, that isn't this frowned upon. You don't ask questions because you can't challenge, and it's seen as subversive. And, God knows that the men and women who wrote the men who wrote the Bible 300 years after it was meant to be written really hate questions. So on Sunday, I actually went to go see one of our good friends speak, Kevin Liu, all the way from Malaysia. He's studying at Oxford right now. And we were talking about kind of the idea of thinking and how we got to the ideas that we, truly believe now within different cultures, whether it's the church or in politics, humanities, the different countries that we live in, talking about the cultures between Australia and being British or English, and then, the United States. And I was talking about El Salvadorians and Latins and how unique that is. But it is interesting how we carry a different mindset wherever we are from. And I want to ask you, how important is it for us to want to be established in the traditions and cultures that we have? I think the Western culture has a very individualistic perspective, right? That if you grow up Latin, it's about the family. It's about the family unit. You don't move out until you're married. And even then, you probably only move next door. It's a very different reality. But then Western culture, I think it's the same. Kevin was talking about, he's from Malaysia. He was talking the same thing. He goes, it's my responsibility to take care of my parents. It's not even something that's asked. It's never even told. It's just known because I watched my parents take care of their parents. And he goes, and they watch their parents take care of their parents. He goes, I just know when it's time, my parents will become my responsibility. And then I will become my son's responsibility. And his son, I think, said in a cheeky way, I'll be in London. He was there. The boys were there at the lunch. It was great. But how important is it for us to, one, have a cultural identity and ideology, but then to also have an individual, perspective? Can that be detrimental to the overall society, that we become too individualistic? Or is it really important that we have our own identity among, the millions and millions of people that we live our lives?
For me, there's tension because there's positive and negative from both sides.
Okay.
And, there's a positive from the more independent, almost individualistic, autonomous cultural perspective of the American culture. You get to go pursue your dreams. You get to go big. You're not limited by, whatever your family's capacity was in the past, but you're oftentimes alone, disconnected, isolated, loss of identity. People don't realize that the reason we don't know who we are is that we're not connected to each other. And our identity comes out of community. And with that community, you will always be searching for your identity. And then just even in parenting, when I watch people have 2, 3 kids and they don't have any family around them, if the dad's working full time and the mom's working full time, it doesn't happen naturally. You have to then hire nannies or put your kids in school, or someone else is raising your kids. And the extended family system allows you to have 3 kids or 4 kids and not go insane. It allows you to have 2 kids and also have some personal life, because you got a grandmom and granddad, you have uncles and aunts, and Juno has you, and Juno has me and Kim, and Juno not only has her mom and dad, but she has an extended family that live all around her. It makes a huge difference. And then on the flip side, being Latin, it can also come with great benefits and detriments. And the benefit is, my grandparents were my parents really at first, and I called them mom and dad. They raised me in the first years of my life, and my uncle was like my older brother, and my uncle and aunts were all part of my life, and I was part of their lives, and so I had an extended family system in El Salvador that was really, really important to me, and because my mom's marriage to my dad didn't go well and ended very quickly, we would have been the children of a single mom without any extended help or any family to support her, and it would have been even more difficult. And so I'm so grateful.
Do you think that, obviously that was a unique situation, I don't want to go too into it, but do you think because she knew she had such a strong support system that it made it easier for her to make that transition out of that bad relationship? No matter how obviously like painful, any relationship that ends probably is. Do you think that was always looming kind of in the back of her mind, going like, I know I have family?
Ironically, it was harder because getting a divorce was disappointing to her parents. It was like, you're not just divorcing your husband, disgracing your family. It was pretty brutal for my mom, so because you're so tight knit, it's almost like everybody's opinion and everyone's perspective and everyone's, values are yours. And so you're sometimes a prisoner to your entire family system, which is the downside. A lot of times a Latin, if you want to go be an actor and your family would rather just work down the street, and work in a restaurant so you can be close to home, or if you want to go, and you have dreams to make millions of dollars. What?
Let's work something out. Because our family's kind of like that. If you make big mistakes, there's big shame and guilt. And there was definitely, I definitely grew up with, a sense and reality. It wasn't a sense, it was the reality of, you cannot make mistakes. Everyone is watching. And maybe everyone wasn't watching, but it was almost kind of this overreaction of everyone's watching you. You cannot behave like this. And if you do, they'll know we're not perfect.
Well, your mom is Irish, and Irish are the European Catholics, the Mexicans.
I'm not, but I'm not putting this on mom. I'm putting this on both of you. You guys are,
No, it's a huge part. Well, I actually think I'm the opposite. I care very little about what other people think.
So you're saying that all of maybe the morality you tried to set in line, or the rules, and all, but that was just from morality, not so much from other people's perception.
No, I think that the values I tried to pass on to you were the values and principles that I knew would make your life better. I didn't care about other people's opinion of you, but I did care about your well-being and your health and your future.
But there was never, that's not open source, because there was never an option to go like, hey, what do you think about this? It was, this is the way. And if you don't believe it, you can leave, which is tough, which is really hard.
No, I never said that to you.
You never said it to me, but I knew that was the way.
I disagree. I think
we can talk about it. Drinking on my 23rd birthday, that was unacceptable and not allowed. But no, because I think it's really interesting now, because I think no, it was by you. Oh, by Yeah, yeah. But I think what, but yeah, that makes sense. I now looking back, I remember. But you didn't say like, hey, you can do whatever you want. You were like, well, we got to follow mom's rules. Mom feels uncomfortable. We're not going to do it.
I said, hey, do you want to be happy?
No, but happiness shouldn't be living under the scrutiny of the overwatchers.
Welcome to family.
Yeah. No, I just think it's fascinating because I think
there isn't a culture in the world where that isn't true.
No, I think actually, if anything, our culture is so much more free. Especially talking with Kevin Liu, hearing about more of the Asian culture. There is no option.
Yes, obedience.
Obedience.
But and so it's challenging. But you asked a really good question. I think that's why it's important to look at culture. And yes, we're all connected to culture, and you cannot extricate yourself from it. You're affected by the world around you. You're affected by the people, the community, the family, the society, and none of us are impervious to the opinions and thoughts of other people. And it affects us when people say things about us, good or bad. And it does shape us. And you'll if you get a bad haircut and someone says, "Oh, I don't like your hair," it's amazing how quickly you change the haircut. Or
there's nothing more. Nothing more.
So even the small things, we're all affected, and it's true with cultural values. And so I just look and go, I'm really grateful for my Latin background, and I'm really thankful for so much that was infused in me. I'm also grateful for the things that I've absorbed from American culture. I actually love the whole dynamic of the American dream. I love the fact that we live in an environment where we're encouraged to pursue big lives, big dreams, big goals. Yeah. I don't think that's true in other parts of the world. I actually love the heroic narrative of American culture where you're expected to live a heroic life. You're challenged to be a pioneer, a discoverer, an adventurer, an explorer. And that's a part of the American culture. And I am really grateful that I got that.
So one thing I find interesting, and sorry, I'm being a little sharp today. I know I am. I love my family unit. I think we're all older now, so I think it's easier for us to be more open about the things that were harder for us when we were younger, or in the late teens, early 20s. But I didn't process when we were younger and I had no mental awareness. I had no self-awareness that this was a real thing going on. Whether it's sex, drugs, rock and roll, literally secular music. Like we grew up exposed to the world and the reality of the world. And I think in the heaviness of the world lived in, I spent more time in third world countries, second and third world countries before I was, 15 than most people do in their entire lives. Mm-hmm. I remember I remember the first time I stayed in a nice hotel being like, oh, these beds move. These beds aren't hard. They're not made out of like concrete wood, wood and concrete. They're soft. We lived on, in the other way. And so I do think there was a lot that was exposed to. So I do think the culture and the society that I came from was actually really helpful and really pivotal in the way I grew up and the way I see the world. At the same time, I'm going, how important is it for me, for anyone to go, okay, this is the cultural standard in which I'm surrounded by. And now I have to decide whether I fit inside of this culture or if I have to go and find a culture in which I fit in better. Or do I go and
create a new culture?
Create a new culture where I go, these are the rules. This is how I live my life. And this is, and not so much live my life, but this is the way I think. This is the way I see. This is the way I discover the world.
See, and I feel like that's what I did with Mosaic. And, I became a person of faith. I became a follower of Jesus. I did not agree with pervasive way that faith was expressed through the church. I didn't fit in. I didn't like it. It wasn't compelling. It was boring and felt irrelevant to life. And so I couldn't find a place that I felt matched my way of seeing the world. So I created one. And I think that's a perfectly legitimate and valid approach toward engaging the world. Because if you cannot find a place to fit and you need a different kind of environment, so do other people. You have to realize you're not the only one. You may just be the first one. And that's what I really came to conviction of, is that I wasn't the only one. I felt that for a long time. I thought, I'm the only one who feels this way. I'm the only one who doesn't fit in. I'm the only one. And then one day I realized, no, I'm not the only one. I'm just the first one in this part of this world. And
That,
if I can open it up, it creates a space for other people.
That's where I really commend you, because I've walked into rooms with you, kind of old rooms where you've walked back into old rooms, or like that, you know, and you would kind of always whisper like, hey, this is what it used to be like. This is how conservative, this is how strict, this is how, you know, you would kind of give little references like, hey, bud, like, you know, I would ask you, what was it like? What was it like 30 years ago? I was 4, I was 3, I was a kid, I was a baby crawling around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you would kind of give little windows into the way that, whether it was church or business or whatever it was. So sitting with Kevin and a new friend named Phil, who I think listens to Battle Ready, which was awesome. And he didn't tell me this until the very end, which also sucks, because then I was just running my mouth being like, oh, this person doesn't know anything about what we do, which is, or not Battle Ready. Sorry. We're on Mind Shift now. But doesn't know anything what we do. So I can just be myself and just, you know, be chatty and give my opinion. And then I've realized now more than ever before that I really just should never say what I think. But we were having this conversation about, you know, rules within the constructs of our society, and why do we think the things that we think, and why do we live the way that we live. And he was talking about a friend who went from, you know, one organization to another organization, and literally the conversation was about drinking. And he was like, he was perfectly accepted and fine to drink within one organization. And then he made a comment. He goes, but I guess he's aspirational. So he moved to another organization, and within this organization, he can't drink. And he looked at him and was like, man, that's just weird. And to his friend, he's like, that's just weird, because we're having a beer. Like, this means nothing. Beer is gross. It is. It's just gross. I don't really like it. And just in general. And so I was already checking out of this conversation. But we were calling it out, and he goes, what do you think it is? And I laughed and said, that to me is cult behavior. Because I understand when you don't do something for religious reasons. I understand when you don't do something for organizational reasons, for the most part. But when you're perfectly fine with living within the construct of your morality, but also maybe you're still a great person, and there's nothing wrong with what you're doing before, but you change everything about yourself, or these small little things that seem so natural and easy because of whether it's a control within an organization or rules. That's where it unsettles me. And I was listening to Russell Brand's, and I jokingly said, I have a few things to say, but I probably shouldn't say them. And then Kevin Lou looked at me and said, oh gosh, please say them. And I said, oh, I think it's cult behavior. I think that's weird. And I was referencing this podcast that I listened to. And this is kind of getting into what we were talking about today. But I was listening to Russell Brand, and he was on a podcast. And remember that he's like that wiry philosophical actor who was in, I think, Forgetting Sarah Marshall and all of those crazy movies in, you know, the mid 2000s. And it seemed like he's had this spiritual awakening. He really referred to the importance of the AA program, the 12-step program that he went through to get clean, and how important it was for him to understand that he is not the most powerful being in the universe. And that because he's not the most powerful being in the universe, there is really an importance to understand that there is a higher power, there is a higher force. In his case, he really talked about God, which I thought was really interesting. But he talked about this idea of anarchist calisthenics. He just made a reference talking about, he was like, I was pure anarchy. And he goes, so much so that it was like anarchist calisthenics, that I was literally exercising anarchy on a daily basis. He goes, my only exercise was I was exercising my ability to be an anarchist. And I thought that was really interesting, because I would consider you an anarchist, a practicing anarchist, someone who's continually breaking down mental constructs, ideological constructs, and then reshaping them, rebuilding them, and redistributing how you see the world. I could go on and on of this about how many times you blow our minds, but how important is it for us to rethink the old ways, to carry on tradition? Because I'm sitting now in a country where, you know, it's grateful to be here. There's beautiful architecture, but there's, you know, I was walking to the gym today, and there's this gigantic building called Buckingham Palace. And this idea that there's still a king and a queen, though I love the idea, I think it's fascinating and interesting and very Disney-esque, it is a wild construct that we still have kings and queens on this earth.
Well, and King Charles just got a huge raise, which is
Did
crazy that the government pays the king to be king, to do nothing. and, but yeah, I mean, his salary is massive, and I guess the Queen Elizabeth that's who it was. I guess she didn't get a raise for a long time. She probably
Okay.
didn't ask for one, but I think his salary pretty much doubled, and this week.
Oh,
But
an
I,
annual stipend of 124 million pounds. The King's public funding will increase by a projected 38 million. Oh my goodness. So it was 86 million, Dad, and now
yeah,
it's 124 million in 2025.
it's
Look,
good
man,
to be king.
it's good to be king. I want to be king. I
and,
take it back.
yeah,
Don't question anything.
yeah. Here's the thing. Um, I'm not a huge fan of most traditions. I think most traditions misdirect the energy we need to create a better future.
Mm,
And I believe in values and I believe in principles, but I'm not a big fan of traditions at all. We have a few family traditions, and I think that when a tradition holds your values and principles beautifully, those are beautiful traditions. And so you have Thanksgiving for us here, and Thanksgiving for me is a beautiful tradition, and
I love things.
it's but it's about family and community and friendship and love and food and enjoying each other
So
and
much.
so it encompasses certain things. And if that tradition got in the way of the actual principles and values, if somehow the tradition got in the way of creating real community and real family and real friendship and real intimacy, that tradition actually becomes a liability. And I think that the reality is that, one, monarchies are a tradition that really should not be held onto. That's my view. That it wasn't our best season in human history when individuals acted like gods and took the roles of kings and lords and ruled over the common person and took all the wealth and all the power and believed that it was mandated by God. I just don't think that was like the best expression of the human story. So I'm not really big on keeping that tradition alive. But I think if I'm accurate, when the United States was being formed, the United States of America became the world's essentially first democracy. And there was only one democracy. You could say maybe the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire was a democracy, at least for the Greeks or the Romans that were, quote, citizens. But in that time in history, we were the singular democracy in the world. And then I think by the time the Civil War happened, there were maybe 6 democracies in the world. And, so this whole idea of democracy is a really new concept. This idea that we actually elect officials and no one holds power permanently, and that you have a rotation of power that's entrusted by the citizenry. This is all new. And, if you want to keep our traditions, we need to have totalitarian leaders.
Right.
Really, tradition is we should have dictators. Tradition is we should have monarchs who believe that God gave them the right to rule over us. I think the future is better.
You made a comment saying that our energy is often misdirected towards traditions versus towards building the future that we need to build. We talked a little bit off screen, off camera, off podcast about the momentums that drive us and what momentum should drive us in life. And we're, as we segue from this kind of idea of the mentality behind what we do, what is it that drives you to do what you do? And why is it so important to have lived the life that you've lived and to keep living the life that you're living? It seems like it would be so much easier to just go like, okay, I found my little place in the world where everyone believes the things that I believe, because it feels so much better when it's why we go to basketball games and baseball games and sports and it's why we vote political parties. It's why we go to movies and hope that we like them. We like being in rooms where other people feel and believe the same things that we feel and believe. That momentum can really do something in the world. But when it's misdirected, how important is it for us and why is it such a focus for you? And what are the momentums that drive you individually?
You were asking me earlier what was my why. And I
Yeah.
was walking over here to the microphone asking myself that question. 30 years ago, I put together a statement of my life. And I just wrote down that I wanted to be a voice of hope. And that became really the driving force of my life. I felt like humanity was drowning in hopelessness. And I just could never shake remembering what it felt like to feel alone and disconnected, insignificant. And I wanted to be at least a small part of helping people never have to feel that way again. And so a huge driving value of my life has been to be a voice of hope. And that for me is the connecting point between humanity and Jesus. I don't teach the world about Jesus because I need the world to agree with me or to even like believe in Jesus because I just need them to believe what I believe. I communicate who Jesus is to the world because I desperately want people to have hope. And I know that that hope is found in him. And that if people will connect to him, that those deep recesses where we move to a despair and depression and loneliness and disconnection and insignificance can be overtaken by the presence of a God that loves people unconditionally. And out of that statement, to be a voice of hope, is where I wrote Mosaic's mission statement, over 30 years ago. It happened at UCLA basketball when Chip Anderson asked me, Erwin, what is your why? And I said, to be a voice of hope. And then on the drive home, by the time I got to the house, I had put together the mission statement that in my life, I'm going to live by faith, be known by love, and be a voice of hope. And that became my why. That humanity became my why. And that became my mission statement for my life.
I think it now as we do both, as we do Mosaic and we do these new projects that we're working on, one being the Arena, which is, kind of the evolution of the art of communication to a subscription-based platform where we build and dive deep and in a very niche way into communication, self-mastery, and leadership, which I think is, we also call it character and self-mastery. But I think it's really important for us, the new projects, because I think, when you talk about your why, that's really a moral code. I don't know if that's why you do it, but it's how you do it. Mm-hmm. Right? You want to be a voice of hope.
Yeah,
that's how you do it. You're hopeful. But what is the reason, right? For people to feel more hope, to feel love, to feel.
No, I think for people to actually have hope. I think your why evolves over time. I mean, what would you say your why is now, right now, Aaron, in your life?
I don't know. You're so good at these mission statements. No, that's why I ask you. It's really, why. Two really big issues in my life. I remember when I was younger and you really sat me down and said, you don't have a worldview, which is so interesting. And I think I just adopted yours. One, I think because you're a very powerful and convincing human being, but two, I was also very close to you. So it was easy. It was like, whatever that guy is, I am, which doesn't work forever, right? At some point, you really do have to believe in something and have an idea of the way the world works. But for me, I think two big issues, mountains I have to climb, is I have so many dreams. I don't have a singular dream. I don't have one singular dream. I don't wake up in the morning and go, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I have an idea of who I want in my life forever. I have a proximity of people who I want in my life. I know for the most part where I want to be in my life. I know that there's financial goals and there's, physical, tangible goals, but there's not this like dream that lives inside of me that I'm like, I have to do this to change the world. And even when I was planting churches for you and speaking on Sundays, it was more just like a function. Like I believe in it. I like fully believed in everything we did. Mosaic Venice was one of my favorite seasons of my life, the most meaningful season of my life. It was the most fun season of my life. It wasn't even like that hard. It was hard mentally because it was scary and failure is real, but it was this thing where I was like, oh, this is amazing. Like every time I went up and we did something or we had a team meeting, I forget we had 250 leaders on that team. Like I was so gifted to have these people in my life that we listened and we did things together. We took ground and we grew a space, and we did it again in Seattle and Mexico City. And, but I don't know if I wake up going, this is my why. This is why I do it. I think my why, if I was going to say anything, and I think this is hard for people to understand because I've been called everything that you can think to call a son who like actually loves his dad and loves being around him. I remember this really good friend of mine in New York, when I was leaving New York to come back to work for you, more than one person were like, "You're a daddy's boy and you're just going to run back to dad because that's safe." And they weren't wrong. Like, I wasn't running back to dad because it was safe. It was actually worse going back. It was way harder going back. I think that was the thing they didn't realize, that I wasn't going back to something really easy. I was going back to something that was really hard. But my dream, I think my dream has been for the last 10 years is to build you, to go, okay, I want to build the voice that I really truly believe in. And I really think your voice matters, your mind matters, the things that you speak matter. And if I can make it more interesting, cooler, attach it to, an interesting aesthetic or a website or people, and build a team around that, that's the game that I like. The why, though, I'm not sure. So how do I find my why?
Well, I think that's a really.
I feel like I have a worldview now, but I don't know
Yeah,
if
I
I
think
have a
you have
why.
to ask yourself. Well, I think it's important to have a why, because if you don't have a why, your what, when, where, and how will be drifting off without a gravitational core. And sometimes we can pick up temporary whys, like our friend Edwin Ariave, who we're going to have on this podcast. He would say that early on, coming out of poverty, his why was wealth. His why was buying the Lamborghini. His why was being able to buy the house in Hollywood Hills. And so sometimes it's a very superficial why, or a temporary why that pulls us forward. And then when you achieve that, you're realizing, wow, this isn't a good enough why. I need a bigger why. And what's just so ironic, the reason I bring up Edwin is, like, every time I talk to him, he's always, I want to give millions of dollars to the church. I want to give millions of dollars to advance the movement that, is Mosaic across the world. And you can just see his why evolving over time and having a higher value. And even like my why, I think, when I became a follower of Jesus, I think my why was I wanted to bring the world into a life-changing relationship with Jesus. And then, as I think, I'm say, as I matured and textured my soul more and more, my why became more, I want to bring hope to people who would never consider God. Like I really didn't have any drive to be famous in the Christian world, any drive to be successful inside of Christianity. My drive was, I want to be able to sit at a dinner table with people who are atheists, agnostics, Buddhists, Hindus, Muslims, and anyone who would never be in that conversation. And I think that now, and maybe it's my stage in life, a lot of my why, Aaron, is want to elevate the way people think. And there's just something inside of me. I just want to bring light to dark thinking, to where we hide in the shadows of bad thought. I want to destroy cliches and superstitions, and I find, it's odd. Sometimes you have a why and it drives your life, and then you end up with a new why, and you find yourself in a conflict and you're not sure what to do. And so I've seen you. There have been times in your life where your why was so at the core about bringing people to Jesus, and then your why was so much about the church.
And those
Yeah,
are two things
no.
I really do believe in. I really do.
Yeah. It can become a part, the whole of who you are. But as you become more clear about your gifts and your talents and your passion and your intention, your why, I think, can become more clear, or actually change in life.
So
And
I
I
think
think
I
you have
have
to
a
be
why.
comfortable to go, okay, what's your why, Aaron McManus?
No, we've talked about this. I think this is the thing is, though I don't work for church, I have a deep value for church. I don't love going right now. I don't enjoy but this is the thing. I don't enjoy concerts, and I don't enjoy going to big events. So church is the pinnacle of anxiety attack for me in my own life, right? And it isn't has anything to do with any one specific church. It's more like, if I was with my buddy McLaren in London, and we were walking through, and he goes, "Which way do you want to go?" Because I said, we're going to find a coffee shop to just grab a coffee real quick after lunch. He goes, "Which way do you want to go?" And he goes, "That way is Regent Park or Regent Street or something, and Piccadilly Circus, and that way is Leicester Square." And I was like, "Is there another option?" Because all I see is masses of people. I was like, that looks like an anxiety attack. And the other one looks like I'm going to be breathing very, very heavy. But the thing that we are so known for, I think, is something that is really hard for me to be in and be around. You know it. I tell you, it's like, it doesn't even come from like a disdain for anything. In my best moments, I don't like to be there very long because it's hard for me to say hi to a bunch of people. It's hard for me to say hi to anyone. I have had to make myself a practice of, I just say hello to everybody, try to hug everyone, try to say hi to everybody. But it is so hard for me. Like, I don't even really my friends know this. I probably won't even say hi to them if I see them. I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going. But I think my why with Mosaic and you was for that 10 years was to make Mosaic the most, I think, to carry on the legacy that you had, right? That Mosaic was the most cutting edge, most forward thinking, most inspirational space that had really existed for 20 years. And then the last 10, I think we were able to do something really cool together, given with like aesthetics or logos or, some other things, conferences, the way we did things, I think were a little different. And that was cool. And for me to be a part of that chapter was huge. I think the why changed when Mosaic needed a massive amount of money. And I realized that I didn't want to be, I think people who give their lives to the church are some of the most important people on this earth. I do. And I don't think there's enough people who surround them, especially on the West Coast, who surround them going, okay, I'm really wealthy and I'm going to make your life easier. And not by giving you all of these things, but by going, I'm going to build a construct and a system in which when this does well, you're able, not the church, but like when business goes well, I'm able to help you personally. Like, and I think we talked about this. My why is I want to be someone who generates enough wealth to help pastors be in a position where they can own houses, where they can live their lives, send their kids to the best schools in the city, where they can never think about, going on a vacation or taking a break and finding rest. Because so much, and this is something that has been a gift that you've given me, is that you've given me the ability to be successful. You've given me the ability to generate some wealth. And having done that has changed my life. I remember 10 years ago when I first started working for you and the pay was so bad. I genuinely, I couldn't afford a car. I didn't know how I was going to eat. I was really grateful, on my own. I obviously knew I could always go home and I could always be with you guys, but to be on my own was actually something that was really hard. To move out of the house was almost like unachievable. Things were really different. To be 10 years later and go, okay, we've done something. We've done a little bit of something. Now, can we blow this out of the water and make it great? And not just generate wealth or build money and make money and sell these products to do that. Most of the products we do are just for art. Like, we talk about clothing and we're just breaking even half the time. We're lucky if that happens. It's experimental. You get to be a part of that journey. But when it comes to this business, for me, it's financial freedom for the people around me, the people that are in my life, so that if I could maybe be a blessing. And guys like you for sure, guys like Brad Damphouse, guys like Edwin Ariave, who give massively to the church to go, I want to make your lives better. I want to help you figure out how to do this and build staff, make things easier and grow. I think my why switched going, okay, I can forever. And maybe it's just because I just didn't want to be the other you and live in that shadow forever. I was like, okay, and maybe I am now just doing this other thing, but I'm just ranting now at this point, but I'm coming to a close, I promise. My why is this. I want to help people. I want to help provide homes. I want to help build business. And I want to make so much money that when a church goes, we have this building in Hollywood. The insanity to me that people haven't stepped up and just gone, people who we know can buy it haven't just bought it and just gone, this needs to be a church forever. This needs to be a creative space on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard forever. I don't walk around telling people this, but it's that's what I think about. I wake up and I go, okay, I got to think about money. I got to figure this out. This is a game. And I told this to you. I said, me and you have to get so comfortable having this conversation with each other, because to us, this has to be something. If lesser men can do more, then if we put our focus on it and our faith and our trust and every moment that we can to build it, we can achieve this and be more generous than those people.
I love that. That's so good. If you're listening right now, I think one of the things that's important is to take some time and actually begin to process your why. Why do you do what you do? And maybe reverse engineer it. Instead of trying to figure out what your why is supposed to be, figure out what your why actually is by what you're doing every day, because your why gets revealed by what you do. And then if you don't like the why you discover, then begin to change your why. And and sometimes what you'll find is your why is when you feel most alive. Your why is when you feel full of passion. Your why is when no one has to pay you. They can't even stop you because you just have to do it. And I think that's a part of it. Like, if I just be really personal, this Sunday I struggled because I had an idea I wanted to share, but I didn't know if it was really appropriate to share on Sunday. And so I was struggling, going, the things I think about now, things I care about really deeply, the things that I feel like I'm supposed to share with the world, the things I'm a steward of, they don't really fit as much on Sunday morning. Because on Sunday morning, I'm trying to teach the Bible to really help people understand, the scriptures and who Jesus is and what God is saying to their life. But my mind doesn't just go there. My mind goes to places like, how do you have epiphanies? How do you have breakthrough ideas? How do you actualize the genius within you? There's just a lot of things that, to me, are really important and essential, and they come naturally to me. And so I find myself sometimes going, wow, I'm finding myself in a season where my why is evolving, refining, and changing. And maybe some of it is I'm almost 65, and every season of my life I try to take on new challenges. I try to push myself and press myself to do things I've never done before, and to go outside of my comfort zone. And and so I think it's really important to go, I need to have a why, and that why, it does drive my life. So I need to identify it. And if that why isn't good enough, if it isn't valid for me, I need to step up and find a why that replaces that why. And then realize that it's only your why if you're willing to sacrifice for it. It's only your why if you're willing to step into it, regardless of what anyone else says. It's only your why if you do not need applause, if you do not need celebration, if you do not need affirmation, if it's your must. And when you have that why, it drives everything, and it begins to define your what and how and where and when and with who.
I think, I think finding your why is really important. I think growing up the way we grew up, in the circumstances that we grew up in the environment we grew up, so much of this world is so new. Being in the business world is, for me, so new as an adult. I mean, we've been doing stuff since, I was 20 years old. You've been in business your whole life, but really, a huge portion of my adulthood has been building church, has been building community, has been, how can I
Absolutely
build leaders, go up on a platform and take people from A to B to Z, and to inspire, to bring change, to bring life change, to be there for people in their worst moments. And then to go, okay, that's very important, but they're acknowledging that there's other people who can do that better than me, and going, okay, this opportunity that we have with the arena, with building communicators around the world, because I think for this, this gets me excited. And I don't know if I think the reason why I struggle with the why and my dreams, what's my dream, is because I just didn't wake up at 4 years old or 10 years old going I'm going to build a communication, arena for people around the world to come together to sharpen their skills. That wasn't even a construct, right? We had dial-up internet, the idea of this just didn't really ever, dawn on me. And so for me, it's this. I think the reality of what we're building, the arena, is something that is so profound and so incredibly undiscovered, that we are legitimately building a space that does not exist anywhere else. There is nowhere in this world where you can go online and not only connect with us, connect with you, connect with your friends who are going to join you in these conversations and learn how you do it, but actively engage with you and people around you, right? I think for the last 20, 30, 40 years, this idea of, really for hundreds of years, right? They've built coliseums for thousands and thousands and thousands of people to come together to watch a few people do something. And this is what's so
Mhm.
unique about this community. And I think this is what kind of gets me going lately. And I talked about it in the last podcast about how it made me so anxious in LA because I'm like, we've been building, 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 and now it's finally time to release it. I'm like, okay, I got to go somewhere. Let's go do something and celebrate. Even though we haven't done it yet. So it's kind of this weird thing. Like I feel guilt. I'm like, I can't have too much fun because we haven't quite done it yet. But this is really unique because this is a place where it's not just everyone focused on you. It's going, we're building a place that accountability, that people engaging with their peers, having world-class conversations and building relationships with each other. I mean, this is the future. This is how people will speak at each other's events. This is how people will get invited to each other's business meetings and partnerships. I think some of the greatest companies of the future will come from this community, and we're building it, and we launch it on August 2nd. So if I'm talking about a dream, I don't know if this is my life dream, but I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, but, you know, if you want to elevate your why, then change your who.
Okay.
And when you begin to change the people that you're around, it changes your why. When you elevate the people you're around, it elevates your why. And one of the things I've noticed, even, you know, as being your dad, is um, the selection process of the people that you invest in. Like, you invest in people that you can pull up, but you also connect to people that pull you up. And you put yourself in rooms with people who challenge you, with people who think
Yeah.
at a high level. And you can always know when a person is going to elevate their why because they elevate their inner circle. And
Right.
since you mentioned the arena, I actually think that's what's exciting, is that in the arena, we're going to get to elevate our who. And when we elevate the people that we're engaged with, it's going to elevate our why, and we're all going to get better.
And I actually worked out with a guy in London today, and this guy named Elliot, and he was awesome. A new friend, a friend of a friend. And we were talking, and he's like, "What the heck do you guys do? You keep talking about your dad. You keep talking about, your friends in LA. You keep talking about these these businesses." And I was like, "Oh, well, we built a thing called the Arena, and it launches August 2nd, and it is for communicators all over the world who it's for people because we all communicate, right? And this is the really beautiful
Yeah.
thing about you, because some of the most amazing thing like constructs that you've come up with, like just the idea of the artisan soul, that everyone is an artist, like that
Mhm.
now is something that's so common to think, to understand. Like we're all a part of this artistic movement. There's never
Mhm.
been more creative directors in the world than now, um, right?
Mhm.
But really, this idea that you've kind of locked in and gone, okay, this is this niche, like that everyone communicates. It is a part of our human nature. It's part of our being human is to communicate. And this young guy had a company called I think it's called Whole Human, where he's really coming up with this really, it's actually amazing. You're going to love him because it's about this holistic view of how to bring in bring in science with your body, and then
Mm.
bring in kind of like holistic medicine and using just herbs and vitamins and kind of and natural plants to kind of heal your body as well. And like recovery. And so this guy's an ex rugby player. He's a jujitsu brown belt, I think. And he's training me going like, I just care about the human body, not just what you do in this moment, but all the things that surround what you do when you work out. He's like the cold plunge, the sauna, the working out, the way you eat, the way you sleep. He's like, sleep is the most actively passive thing you can do and how important it is for
Mm.
you. And it's something we talk about a lot. To be great, you have to sleep great. But for this situation, I'm going, you have identified that every human communicates. And to be great, you have to communicate at a high level.
Mhm.
And to function at a high level, you need to communicate well. And so we can always, me, I am exhibit A. I am literally your living in-house guinea pig and person who is continuously needing to get better, all the things that you create. I am not like a world-class communicator, but I would say that I have to communicate for a living. And I need to communicate to live just on a daily basis. And I know that those days where I'm like, I've been really quiet today, I just haven't lived the same amount of life that I could have. I haven't connected deeper with this humanity, right? So this community, I think, is going to be phenomenal. It really is
I'm
going to be
excited.
special. I'm excited too.
Well, we got a week to go, and we'll be ready
We
to
have a
roll.
week. Well, when this thing comes out, this episode comes out, it'll be 3 days away or 4 days away from when we launch.
That's exciting.
It's exciting.
That is so exciting. All
Yeah.
right, hey, can you tell them how to connect to the arena, since we're ending our conversation today, basically letting everybody know about it.
ErwinMcManus.com. And by the time this comes out,
ErwinMcManus.com.
yes, by
And
the time
you sign up on the waiting list.
Sign up on the waiting list. Essentially, it's going to be sign up to our newsletter, to your newsletter, and you're going to get all the information for the arena when it releases. So it's going to come in an email. We'll post about it on Instagram, social media. We'll advertise it on this podcast. The link will be in this episode and in the next episode and for every episode from now on. We're going to shut down the Patreon. So we're going to say thank you to everybody who's supported us on the Patreon. And we're going to drive everybody to being a part of the arena.
It's good talking to you in London. Good to see your face. Austin, we're so glad that your dad is doing well and you got a chance to go back home. And so grateful for technology that allows us to be in different parts of the world and yet come together at the same time.
Yeah, Austin's not allowed to unmute his microphone because he's in the loudest coffee shop in the world. But we love him and we're with you, man. I love you and I'm excited to see you and talk about all the exciting things that we're gonna go do in Copenhagen. I cannot wait. I also my petition is that Austin gets to come. Maybe he does.
Hey, love you, bud.
Love you, Dad. I'll talk to you soon.